Good morning. Today I will be going over slop elimination. Now we'll be using the Demon Child VTE2, and I'll be showing how to reduce slop as the rear right hub does have a bit of slop, so it's a good example of something to work on. And it's a question I get asked quite often about, like, how do you keep your wheels so straight? So I'll be going over that shortly. So the GoPro has a pretty wide angle, so it's hard to show direction very well, but I'll try to do my best here. As you can see, there is caster, camber, and toe-in slop. So that means that the bearings are most likely needing to be re-tightened. So we'll be taking this wheel off. So I wanted to show some of the different types of slop that's involved in this. Now there's forward, backward, so side to side. We can get rid of that pretty easily. There's also, since the wheel is off now, it's hard to show, but there's the hub itself, the 17mm hub, has its own play. So the shaft that's coming into the hub has play in between the hex nut and itself. So we're going to have to disassemble this whole thing, take this hub off, and then we will be tightening all of that together and then putting it back in the car. So this is on pretty tight. I couldn't get it done with a vice grip, so what I did was I put the hub on its side like that, get it kind of close, and then you grab your 2.5, grab your rubber mallet, and you can give it one solid whack so you're not damaging the bearings too hard. There we go. Now one of the important steps is to actually put the hub, what would you call this? The thing that goes into the hub, you slowly slide it into the inner bearing. You make sure that it spins freely. Now that's a pretty good bearing. Otherwise, you'd hear cracking, not cracking, but clicking, and that means that the bearing journals are kind of messed up. And then what you do is you slowly get it and you put on the outer bearing. See, that's still kind of good, but it's a ceramic bearing and it needs lubrication, but it spins freely. It's going to be a little bit more audible. So now we have it fully disassembled, and I'll show you how to put it back together. Now one thing I do, and the reason why my bearings didn't come out, is I put a dab of super glue on each side, because the Hobao hubs are pretty sloppy. The bearing moves around quite a bit, and you don't want the bearing to be moving around at all. So I put a little bit of super glue on each side, and I do it for the inside as well. And then what you do is you grab your wish I knew what the name of this was. You grab this part, you grab your thread lock, and very carefully put a tiny bit, just a very slight amount. And you do that for that side, because if you put too much on, it's gonna get in onto the bearing and actually break the bearing. It's gonna slow down. So you do that, press it on, and then you do the same for the outer bearing. So put a little bit on, and then you press it out again so that it's on the inner side of the bearing, as you can see. And then you fit it on there, and now you're going to do it again. You're going to put a little bit on there, and then what you do with this is you spin it on so that you're kind of rifling it, making sure that there is some on there. And what you can also do is put a tiny bit more, and then use the hex and put it on backwards. So you go like this. Now this can be tricky since there's some mileage on it, but see, now it's broken loose, and now it's good to be binded back on. So get rid of the debris, put it on. So this can actually use a little bit more. Then we want to do it on the outer side, because that's what's going to give our camber caster slop elimination. So So you do this a whole bunch of times, and then while it's wet, make sure that there's nothing on the bearing seals. You put this on there very carefully, and you grab your pin, slide that on. Okay. Looking good. And then we're gonna assemble it back. I would suggest having a little super glue well like this. It makes it very easy to put stuff back together. So you get some on the nut. Sorry about the shakes. It's kind of exciting stuff for me. And then you grab your adjustable wrench. And you want to put the adjustable wrench on the pin side so that the pin doesn't go walking around. And tight is tight. All it does is hold the pin in there, so not very important. So there we go. We have it together. Okay, so this part is also important. Remember where the shaft is as far as positioning, because it gets worn in on that type of direction. So you leave it in there. See that it has heat marks. And then you grab your bottom screw, you disassemble it, and you have to remember where the spacers are located. I have one on each side, so it's not that crazy. Then you put this on here, like that, and then again, we're going to do the same super glue method. So put that in for the inner side, the inner part of the arm, and then you rifle it in there. And then with this being exposed, you do it again. Just put thread lock, put that in there, hopefully without touching it. And then you can use your screwdriver, really get it in there. And then while that's wet, keep it wet. Don't get any debris on it. Take that out again. You put your first spacer in there. Then you put your hub. So there we go, nothing dramatic. And then do the same with the other spacer. You can hear it click in there. That's good. And we put our nut on there, but don't tighten it down yet, because we don't know what we're going to run into. And then put that assembly back on. You can do the thread lock method on these as well, but they seem to be fine. And then remember where to put the top one on. Remember where to put the top one on. Now we're going to do the same thing with this. This actually has a bit of thread lock to eliminate slop, but what we're going to do, we're going to put that through, make sure that it mates. Then we're going to do thread locking in. You can do this with super glue as well, but it's going to be pretty hard to take apart. And grab your screwdriver. And again, rifling is key. So push it in there, take it out again. Put more on the threads. Now this is a big eyeball thing, so you're just going to have to eyeball it until it's good, until the experience is in there. And you put your nut on there. And then you tighten it down. Okay. Tighten it down. Thread lock on the threads. Just a bit, just a dab. Now this is important on Hobao because there's no serration on the nut. So you're kind of just doing off of friction. Thread lock gives you friction. Then put that on. Now very carefully, without putting too much pressure on the hub since it's still drying. That's good. And now, just as a demonstration, this is our sampler right here. Have Very little slop, almost zero slop. And then check this out. See, still spins freely, but there you go. No slop. Thanks for watching.